How did the popular kid's life fall apart? Viewer edition.
Story 1. I was the popular kid. I had a minor stroke when I was 16 that set off a cascading effect that effed up pretty much every aspect of my life for years. Physically, I was fine for the most part, but mentally I took a hit. I went from having a 160 plus IQ to struggling to retain sentences I just read. I had difficulty speaking for a while and still slur a little bit even now, and became absent-minded and had trouble with comprehension for a few years. This tanked my grades, destroyed my social life, and derailed my life plans. My relationship with my girlfriend fell apart. I was depressed all the time and sleeping all day. I isolated myself from everyone else because I didn't want their pity or their help, and began self-medicating with anything that could make me feel alive again. The really frustrating thing about it was being perceived as damaged or mentally disabled when in reality I was still me. I still had full cognizance, I just didn't have all my faculties about me. It took years of speech therapy and mental exercises to get back to where I was before, but now I'm over my speech impairment and foggy mind. I lost a decade of my life to a freak medical occurrence, and now I'm back and I'm peed off and ready to grab the world by the throat. This isn't a sad story about perseverance with a happy ending. This is my villain origin story. Far be it from me to dissuade anyone from their villain origin story. You know what? You do what you gotta do, but also, huge props to you for, sticking with it and getting your life back on track. I know it's not possible for everyone. There are all kinds of freak medical occurrences that are going to be all sorts of hurdles in your life, but hey, you're sticking with it, and eventually, I know that you're going to find the nemesis of your dreams. Story 2. So, there was this kid in my junior high school who was one of those tough guy types. He'd walk around with this big group and insult and intimidate others all the time. Staff had suspended him multiple times, but he just kept doing it. One day during lunch, he started messing with me, as he usually did. He knew I was autistic and thought it was funny, calling me a whole lot of insults and slurs, as he did with a lot of people, and I put up with it. Honestly, I was fine with him messing with me. I could take it. But one day, he had started messing with my best friend and my girlfriend at the time. That I wouldn't put up with. I stood up, turned around, he was behind me at another table, and punched him in the middle of his back. He got up and pushed me back, then put both his hands in front of him when I started towards him to retaliate, saying, Okay, I don't want to fight you. He yelled, I stopped, and then walked out of the cafeteria and the school and walked home. I was quite done with being at school. A few days later, I got an out-of-school suspension, and he got the same. He never bothered me or my friends again, lost his, and then dropped out at the start of high school. Haven't seen him since. Hope you're well, Austin, and sorry for publicly humiliating you. I mean, while I'm not going to condone, violence unless it is necessary for defending yourself, you know what? He still learned a lesson, and I'm with you. I hope that Austin is doing well and has maybe kind of learned not to mess around with people like that. There's no positive to that in the long run, so yeah, I can't blame you for doing what you did.
Story 3. A girl that I worked with, age 19, was absolutely stunningly beautiful. She had most of the male staff wrapped around her finger. I busted my butt working there, while she simply got everyone else to do her work via manipulation. I also had to pay for training, which she got for free. She slept with many of the single male staff members, often behind each of their backs, and also had at least one affair with a married staff member while being engaged herself. She then got pregnant with twins, her fiancé left her, and she pretended on social media that this was her life plan all along. She showed pictures of her beautiful house, completely white color scheme, and all I could think of was how impractical that would be with babies and toddlers, lol. After the babies got here, all her social media was deleted, and I haven't seen her since. I don't even know if that was even her house, ha ha ha.
I'm not going to criticize anybody for, choosing their dream to be having children and getting off of social media. I'm not saying that she did it for the right reasons or that she's even remotely happy, but I am saying someone could do that and be very happy, possibly happier than most of us.
Story 4. Knew a kid in high school who was popular for boxing and would make claims that his uncle was in the cartel and was a gangster and post himself smoking weed on Insta. Being a boxer, he would pick on kids smaller than him, using them to boost his ego, and even tried bullying me, but left me alone because I knew the basics and would stay out of range. Fast forward, he's hanging out with a friend playing around with a handgun because there are gangsters, and one accidental discharge later, he dies before anyone reaches the scene. I don't know, maybe something's wrong with me, but it would bug me when people tried to pretend that he was some kind of saint. When I found out, I felt nothing. P.S. Sorry for bad grammar. Story 5. Had one popular kid in school that wasn't rich, but had more money than most. Parents bought him a fancy sports car so he could stop taking the school bus like a poor person. He decided to show off his ride after school by doing donuts in the school parking lot. Next day, he entered class in a rage, demanding to know who called the police on him because he got a ticket for doing donuts in said parking lot. I was the weird kid in class because autism wasn't widely known in the late 90s, early 2000s, so he instantly assumed it was me. I just said, "You are aware that the building directly across the street from us is the local police station, right?" He paused for a moment while the whole room went dead silent while staring at him. He said, "Is it? How long?" I just said, "It's been there since before my dad went to this school, so some 50 years?" He was mocked for his stupidity for the remainder of high school. Story 6. Old friend's cousin was very popular. Her sister was too. Her sister was extremely kind to everyone she knew and was the only friend to this person who was bullied a lot. Her brother was a bit mean, but also very nice at times. There was a disaster in the town, small country town, and many people lost their lives, including his sister, also his mother, friends, boyfriend, and some other family. And he was disowned by his father for being gay after that disaster. Everyone at his school blamed him for the disaster as a teen gang had been part of it, and they believed him to be part of the gang. He wasn't. Anyway, now he's quite rich and famous in the city he lives in, so he got his life back, but those years after the attack were some of the hardest he's admitted.
What awful stuff for that person to have to go through, like losing most of their family and then the one immediate family member left, their dad, disowns them for being gay, which, hey, any parent, if you do that, you're a bad parent. You're just a bad parent and a bad person. So screw you. Love your kids unconditionally. But I am glad that that person's life turned around. They, stuck with things and now they're rich and doing well. Like, good for them. I'm sure it doesn't quite mend all the heartbreak they went through, but I'm sure it helps.
Story 7. Kind of like story number 25 in the original video, I had a friend in 4th or 5th grade who had a crush on a popular girl. Me being one of the outcasts, he said he didn't want to be friends anymore. I was confused and in shock. He said something along the lines of, "I can't get a girlfriend if I hang out with someone like you." Next year in middle school, he just looked sad. Asked him what was up, and he said most of his friends had ditched him after he struck out with this girl. His new friends constantly made fun of him for it. He apologized and asked if we wanted to be friends. I said, "I can't get a girlfriend if I look like you," making my voice sound as close to his as I could. Karma's a bee, Ryan. Story 8. I used to be known around my school and was pretty well liked, I think, by most. Well, after graduating, I moved states and tried to keep in contact with everyone as much as possible. I realized my friends were actually pretty horrible people because I would drive 4 hours to see them, pay for our activities, and drive another 4 hours home since I could never crash at their place. The last straw was when I paid for a trip to the beach and only asked them to cover their own food, and after a month of planning, they waited until the day before to rain check me, and I ended up going alone. I only have one friend who I am happy with now. Story 9. His life didn't fall apart until a decade later, but everyone still remembered and liked him up to this point because he was that popular. He was a really nice guy. One of my friends had a crush on him, and many people from high school still talked to or about him a decade after graduation. They found CP on his laptop, like a lot of it. I think it was the biggest CP case in my city's recent history. Everyone was shocked and horrified when they found out. I found out because everyone who went to school with him was talking about it. The guy we all still talked about because he was just that cool, funny, and a nice guy turned out to be the biggest monster in the city. Story 10. Honestly, there's one person I knew who I couldn't say was popular, but he was my friend. He would talk about his brother being a jerk to him and had similar interests. I thought he was cool. And then his mom died, which was a shock, which brought him and his brother closer while his dad spiraled in grief and started hooking up with random women. Then within 2 or 3 months, his dad had a heart attack. Both parents died, having to move in with a family friend that they saw as an uncle, only having his brother left for family. After being told that, I haven't heard from him since, but I hope he's doing well despite how hard things were when we last talked. Story 11. Well, this one girl in my school was popular for a bad reason. She used to bully people to the point where they would drop out of school. She thought I was an easy target since I didn't have any friends to protect me, and it got to the point where she tried to stab me in the wrist with a pencil. Every time I told the teachers what happened, they wouldn't do anything because her mom worked at the school. I'm still in school, and so is she, and more than half the grade agrees she should have been expelled a long time ago. She still has a couple friends, but they are all full of crap like her.
Well, knowing that you're both still in school, I hope that this person is not giving you any trouble. And for as much as I think that wherever she's getting this from is probably from some issues at home, and I have some amount of sympathy for that, she's clearly making other people miserable, and she has to be held accountable for that crap. And honestly, I think with the way it sounds, it's coming back to bite her in the butt. Because when you're an awful jerk, like, yeah, occasionally you get a few close friends that hang on and laugh about that stuff, but eventually you kind of turn everyone against you when you have that attitude. And I kind of promise that once she's out of high school, she's gonna find that a lot of those friends aren't gonna stick around if they're not being forced to hang out together at school.
Story 12. I don't know what happened to my secondary school bullies once I graduated high school, but I do know that none of the ones who went to the same high school as me graduated in time with me. I would have loved to see their faces once they heard I graduated at the top of my class. To be fair, they stopped bullying me once my eating disorder was visible enough to disturb them. Trigger warning, think someone with a BMI lower than 14. I'm now at university studying a subject I've always loved, and eating disorder-wise, I'm doing better. I hope my bullies are too, and hope they aren't bullying someone else. Story 13. Most of the popular kids from my school were not a-holes and seem to be doing well from what I've seen. The only bad one I have seen is one went on a destructive female empowerment trip and decided after years of being a happy housewife, decided to get a job and drastically changed from being a very nice girl to a man-hating working girl. Divorced her husband, tried to take everything he had, and flaunted it on Facebook. We heard from some of her friends that she started drinking heavily. We're all waiting to see what happens. Story 14. I knew a girl who was popular solely because of her looks. Anyone she didn't like, she treated like a bug on the bottom of her shoe. Less than a year out of high school, she got married and had a kid, not sure which order it happened in. During/after her pregnancy, she more than doubled her weight. Her husband divorced her, somehow got nearly everything they owned, and skipped town, leaving her as a miserable single mom with no friends.
I mean, I don't know. That kind of sucks for her. And, it sucks that she was a crappy person too. I wouldn't wish all of that on anyone. And, but hopefully that's given her some time to reflect, Hopefully she can love her kids and still find a good life and be a better person. Folks, it's never too late to stop being a crappy person and just start enjoying life more. I've certainly tried to stop doing some of my crappy things in life, and man, I'm generally a lot happier.
Story 15. I have a story for this one. The popular kid at my elementary school was a bully and a jerk to me. One day, I don't know if he knew my parents were divorced or not, in between classes he said something along the lines of, "You and your mom and your dad will die alone and poor," which is a very effed up thing for like a 4th or 5th grader to say. And me being very hurt took it straight to the principal. 3rd to 4th grade me would gladly tell on almost anyone. After that, the next week, nobody I knew or me saw him at school again. We all believed either he got taken out or got expelled. Young minds think drastically, I guess. Story 16. My elementary and high school bully, who was a very popular girl, just ended up being an aggressive Karen in a loveless marriage with a crappy job. Whenever the couple is seen around town, the guy is always at least 3 meters behind her looking miserable. Having a ruined life doesn't always have to be bombastic. Just the mundane suffering of daily drudge existence is enough of a comeuppance for me. Story 17. We moved to high school. Turns out not a lot of high schoolers like loud and annoying people who just won't shut up. There are several people I know that hate her because of how loud and annoying she is. Wish my homeroom was full of these people. Somehow her entire posse ended up there. She went from everyone likes her to literally only a handful of girls will give her the validation she wants. Story 18. A school friend of mine became a bully in order to become popular. In the last year of school, she dropped out to go to work and boasted to everyone that she was earning 100 pounds a week at age 16, while most of us were still getting pocket money from our parents. I didn't see her after graduation until 4 years later. She was still earning 100 pounds a week and was struggling to move out of her parents' house with her boyfriend because she couldn't afford to.
Seriously, folks, being a bully and mocking and ridiculing people in high school is such a short-term kind of popularity. You just get popular with other jerks, and guess who don't make great long-term friends? Jerks. Eventually, they are going to probably turn on you. And once you're out of high school, that stuff just doesn't cut it. It's not going to get you anywhere, and it's not going to make you happier in the long run. You're just going to make yourself miserable at the cost of trying to get some short-term laughs at the expense of others.
Story 19. I feel bad for the first kid, alluding to the original video. He was abused and somehow he managed to become popular. I know that sometimes popularity comes for the wrong reasons, but sometimes it comes for the good ones. If it's the second case, he is amazing for not becoming a rotten person. Story 20. A football player in our crosstown rival school was killed by a drunk driver. It turns out it was actually the dad of another kid on the team that was really well liked. I never knew him personally, but I always felt bad because I couldn't imagine losing one of your best friends and then finding out later it was your dad's fault, and you wouldn't be seeing him for quite some time either. Story 21. I think the popular kid in my neighborhood had a crappy home life too. When her parents were together, her father had an affair while in the army. She spread pretty terrible rumors about me throughout the neighborhood so she could get in with the cool kids. She got pregnant in college and the guy left her. She ended up having twins and is now a single mother.
I will say, there's nothing wrong with being a single parent, though. My mom, for a while, raised me as a single parent. I've known plenty of people raised by single parents. They can be extremely happy and live amazing lives. And so I just hope a lot of these people that have ended up in that situation are doing better and are hopefully being better so that they can just live better lives. Is that better?
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.